if you have to assume that he went over this story with his team, right? Because the way they were leading him on direct. What do you do if you've got a client who says, "Oh, this is what happened"? I mean, hey, you got to believe him, right?
Well, you definitely don't have to believe them. You can't allow them to perjure themselves if you were in fact knowledgeable of the falsehood. But without the defense lawyers being in the home, I suppose they're stuck with the story they're told. The one thing about a defendant is, at least when I was practicing criminal law, they get one decision. And one decision only, and that is whether or not they can testify. And that's something they're entitled to as a matter of law. So I suspect that defense team looked at this story and advised him that this was nonsense and a very bad idea. He went forward on his own, and I suspect a record was made. But this is something the defense team couldn't control. I mean, this man is, to echo John's sentiments, this is such ridiculous story. If somebody enters your home, whether it's your mother, your wife, your children, I don't care who you are, what neighborhood you live in, what your background is, you are not going to sit there and watch that happen without injecting yourself. And there's no evidence that he injected himself. I mean, this is just a lie on so many faces. And I agree that I think the jury is going to discard it entirely. This was a horrible mistake, putting him on the stand.
And John, the story itself, you talked about the me factor, it's all about him, right? I mean, basically the theme of his story is that these men wanted me to suffer, so they killed my mother in front of me, and it was all, that was what their message was to him, and then he had to flee because they told him to. This could be one of those 5-minute deliberation scenarios, correct? Because what would it take for a juror to sit there and throughout the process think, oh, wow, this guy went through it, and believe him? I mean, is there a chance that one of the 12 sat there and absorbed it and thought, pretty good storyteller, I believe him?
Listen, we live in a world of infinite possibilities, but the reality is that we only have a finite set of probabilities. It is unlikely that someone is going to be on his side. Could there be someone? I mean, I guess there could be, but that individual most likely was on his side from the very beginning, and his story probably had nothing to do with moving the needle for that individual. Again, I cannot see a jury spending that much time thinking about his statement and viewing it as being probable. That's the problem, is that it's not probable. None of it seems to make sense. So I don't see a jury, this jury, I don't see them as being believing of what's going on with him.
Looking forward to closing arguments. Jamie, what do you do? I mean, we know what the prosecution is going to do, and that's, say, the malarkey meter's through the roof, and you know it. What about the defense? If you're representing this guy and you don't believe his story, how do you handle the close? Is it all about the law and reasonable doubt?
It's 100% about the law and reasonable doubt. And that, if I got to put that hat on in this case, which is difficult to do with a straight face, but if I have to put that hat on, that's the play. You try to find, honestly, one of the more educated jurors, that really understands the burden of proof in a case like this. And without direct physical evidence, it boils down to what we've already discussed, and that is whether or not, he's guilty, and that's difficult to ascertain based on the evidence.
Yeah. All right. Again, closing arguments we're expecting next hour. There'll be some jury instructions, and we'll watch them together, see how both sides handle it the day after Mr. Merritt took the stand. Coming up, we're going to get you up to speed on a case that we have been watching out of New England. Karen Reed, she's accused of killing her boyfriend, but she says, no, I'm getting framed. Plus, the capital case against Joseph Zeiler continues later this morning. We are going one-on-one live with the lead investigator who's going to join us coming up this hour on Court TV Live. Stay with us.